Troopers plead guilty to lesser charges in the 1998 Turnpike shooting. Acting Governor Dick Cody is winding down his short stint as the state's chief executive. It's been a busy day of preparations for tomorrow's inaugural ceremonies, and how the high cost of auto insurance has fueled companies' requests to drive out of state. NJN News for Monday, January 14th. The two New Jersey state troopers indicted in the April 1998 Turnpike shootings that put a national spotlight on racial profiling pleaded guilty to lesser charges in Superior Court today. The plea bargains by troopers John Hogan and James Kenna come on the eve of a new administration taking over in Trenton. Jim Hooker is here now with details on the story. Jim?
Kent, Hogan and Kenna, who initially faced attempted murder charges, pleaded guilty to hindering prosecution and hindering apprehension, charges tied to false statements the two made to state police investigators who probed the shooting of unarmed minority men during a roadside traffic stop. The plea deals, supported by the troopers' defense attorneys, the state, and the troopers' union, were immediately criticized by the Black Ministers Council and the NAACP.
The court is satisfied, if it has not already said so, that Mr. Hogan, too, has made a knowing and a voluntary entry of a plea of guilty to the charges set forth in the plea agreement.
Under the hindering prosecution and apprehension charges drawn up by the Attorney General's office, Hogan and Kenna could have received $25,000 in fines and 6.5 years imprisonment. But the punishment handed down by Judge Delahaye included no jail time and $280 in fines each. Both the prosecution and the judge said Hogan and Kenna were products of a system that ultimately failed them.
We do not believe that there's any criminal culpability on the part of either Mr. Hogan and Mr. Kenna for that shooting. That is a matter that the state has accepted responsibility for, as I've indicated, sir, and we continue to do so in that regard, because it was state actors and not these men who set those wheels in motion.
It was a characterization that Judge Delahaye agreed with.
The court concludes that they are not only victims of their own conduct, but victims of a system that employed them.
The judge and prosecutor spoke after hearing accounts from Hogan and Kenna about their training as troopers and their actions at the traffic stop that night, where 11 shots were fired into a van carrying 4 unarmed minority men. The state has since agreed to a multi-million-dollar settlement with the 4 men. The two troopers spoke of training that taught the practice of using race as a major factor in policing, and they said their earlier versions of the shooting were influenced by conversations with more than 100 troopers and others who sought to protect them from any fallout. Kenna, who was involved in a shooting only a month earlier with a drug suspect, said he was also shown the van after it was impounded to refresh his memory of events.
My version of what happened was contaminated with facts that I should not have known or could not have known, and it is that which led to the exaggeration or embellishments.
I was constantly told what to say and how to say it. There was a great concern at the station of a need to justify why Jimmy had fired into the van.
The two said they exaggerated for investigators information like the speed of the van and positions from which they fired, but they stuck to their stories that they felt their lives were endangered when the van began to roll after the stop.
And I then fired 2 shots into the van as I was trying to regain my balance, since I believed the driver had intentionally tried to run me over and a firefight was in progress.
And it was my perception that the movements of the passenger were an attempt by him to drive the van, and I was trying to protect my partner from serious bodily harm at all times.
The plea deal and sentence, where neither trooper would serve any jail or probationary time, was assailed by the NAACP and the Black Ministers Council.
And we are asked to believe that today justice was done. What was done today was political expediency.
Jackson says Hogan and Kenna's superior officers should have been rooted out.
But I know that it's not in the interest of justice what he does. Everybody's trying to put this behind and go on to a better step. He's not prepared to do that. He's a man that lives in the past.
Don't blame us. Blame the institution. Blame the bureaucrats above. Blame the superintendents. Blame the attorney generals. Blame all of the people who had the power. You're letting the generals go away and you're shooting the soldiers.
And late today, the president of the Garden State Bar Association, a professional organization for black attorneys and judges, called the agreement outrageous, saying it, quote, sends a message to the African American and Latino communities that our children's lives are worth $280. And finally, under the agreement, Kent, the federal government agrees not to prosecute, and Hogan and Kenna, who've been suspended without pay, agree to leave the state police.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. New Jersey's economic outlook could be worse than expected. Outgoing State Treasurer Peter Lawrence says his department overestimated state income tax revenues. He now believes New Jersey could be facing a revenue shortfall of as much as $2.4 billion. But Lawrence has provided the McGreevy transition team with $8 billion worth of potential budget cuts.
It includes such things as selling a tobacco bond. It's the tax amnesty program. It includes balances that exist with certain authorities and commissions throughout the state. It's looking at some of the trust accounts embedded in the Division of Pension Accounts.
Lawrence denied that anyone intended to mislead the public about the scope of the potential budget crisis. He said the full extent of the problem became clear when recent revenue reports showed December tax collections were off by $500 million. Meanwhile, Cody is in his third day of his stint as acting governor. He took over from John Bennett on Friday night at midnight and has been fully engaged as acting governor ever since. Michael Aaron is here now with that story. Michael?
Ken, after 28 years in the legislature, Dick Cody is finally getting a taste of what it's like to run the executive branch. And like his Republican colleague John Bennett, who was acting governor for 3.5 days last week, the Democratic co-president of the Senate finds it an agreeable experience.
Seems like only yesterday that my administration started and is coming to an end. It's good things go by so quickly, Mike.
Cody's first stop today was the Jewish Community Center in his hometown of West Orange to sign a bill adding $30,000 to the Holocaust education program of the Metro West Foundation.
Our governor, Richard Cody.
After some remarks came the signing ceremony.
This is a rather unusual position for me to be in, obviously, and usually I'm in the back trying to get in the picture.
But having watched so many predecessors, he knew how to end it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is now law.
Next stop, the State House, where he signed an executive order creating a task force to study the state's preparedness to respond to bioterrorism or public health emergencies. He has special pens made up with his name on them, more than there were people to give them to.
Take one. May have been the other back, you know. Sell them on eBay.
Hey, I need one. In the governor's inner office, he met with his immediate predecessor, former acting governor John Bennett.
Thank you. Okay.
The two of them say they'll sponsor a constitutional amendment to change this strange succession system.
So this situation would never happen again if you had your way.
That's right, although fortunately for me, it did happen.
Since Friday, Cody has visited a psychiatric hospital, signed a law to benefit nursing home patients, and held a news conference on state revenues. He's getting used to it now, but his first meeting was with sports officials to try to get the Super Bowl signed up for Giant Stadium in 2007.
I had a meeting with the commissioner of the NFL, and when I walked in the room, he jumped up and said, "Good afternoon, Governor." I was like, who's he talking to?
Being acting governor means having a state police escort. It also means using Drumthwacket, the governor's mansion, where the Cody family spent Saturday night.
Nice experience for the family to be able, as governor, his first family, to live there just one night. But I came home to reality. I had to take out the garbage at the home in West Orange. Governor or not, the garbage got to go out.
Today at Drumthwacket, he hosted a luncheon for municipal and school officials from his county of Essex. By noon tomorrow, this mansion will no longer be at his disposal.
Does it put ideas into your head about wanting to do this for longer than 3.5 days?
Of course, I'd like to be governor longer than 3.5 days, but Jim McGreevy was elected to serve. And I always say in politics that you prepare yourself so if the door's open, you can walk through it. So you never know what's going to happen in the future. None of it's due, including Jim McGreevy. So if that occasion or that door gets open, hopefully I'll be ready for it.
And late today, Cody signed another bill, this one creating a task force on driver distraction and highway safety. It will deal with whether to put restrictions on cell phones in New Jersey. Ken?
Thank you, Michael. And Governor-elect McGreevy's administration is reviving the position of public advocate. McGreevy has chosen lawyer Seema Singh of a Princeton law firm to fill the post. Singh will be the first public advocate since then Governor Whitman did away with the office 8 years ago. McGreevy said restoring the public advocate office is the best way to end waste and mismanagement in government. Tomorrow, James McGreevy officially becomes New Jersey's next governor. It will be a day filled with traditional ceremony and celebration, and also some events unique to this governor and his promises. Marie DeNoia has a preview of Inauguration Day.
It will be a packed day and night for New Jersey's new governor, beginning in Princeton and ending up at Raritan Center and the inaugural ball. But it will all start here tomorrow morning at 8:30 with an interfaith prayer service at the Princeton University Chapel, a vast and beautiful venue, recently refurbished and, but for limited lighting, very photogenic.
Beautiful place. It was just renovated. The university just finished a 2-year renovation project in December where all of the stained glass was cleaned and re-leaded, and the whole building was repointed and sandblasted. So we're really excited to show it off to the rest of the state.
NJN crews were busily setting the stage at each inaugural location. Every step the governor takes tomorrow, NJN will be watching and bringing it to New Jersey live. No simple task. It's been weeks in the planning and several days of setting up.
There's a whole bunch of stuff going on audio-wise. There's from cannons to 5 choirs to orchestras.
After the service in Princeton, it's on to Trenton and the swearing-in ceremony. And shortly after 12 noon, James McGreevy takes the oath of office right here on the stage of Patriots Theater at the War Memorial before a packed house.
The State Assembly and the Senate will be seated on the stage. There will be congresspeople, U.S. senators, family, friends.
And while all of the inaugural events will be broadcast on the internet, after the swearing-in, Governor McGreevy and former governors DeFrancesco, Florio, and Byrne will host a webcast in which 2 fourth-grade classes from Cranford and Camden will log on and ask questions of the governors. A group of Trenton fourth graders will join them in the ballroom at the War Memorial. For McGreevy, it is, according to a spokesperson, another way for him to underscore his commitment to education. After the special webcast, it's on to the time-honored tradition, the inaugural parade, during which more than 75 different organizations will appear to herald the incoming governor. The parade wraps up here on the State House steps when the governor breaks from tradition yet again with a big rally. A spokesperson from the inaugural committee tells us it's his way of signifying that when he goes into the State House, he's bringing the entire state of New Jersey with him. Marie DeNoia, NJN News, Trenton.
And the governor-elect will be sworn in as New Jersey's 51st governor tomorrow. Of course, NJN will have complete live coverage of Inauguration Day. It begins with an interfaith prayer service in Princeton at 8:30 in the morning. The inaugural ceremony begins in Trenton at 11:30 a.m., and that will be followed by the inaugural parade at 2 o'clock. NJN News will have complete coverage of the inauguration on our broadcasts at 6, 7:30, and 11 o'clock. And we'll be back with more NJN News in just a moment. Stay with us.
Tonight, think 13. At 8, he was considered the funniest man on earth and an unflinching critic of human nature. Now, in an illuminating profile by acclaimed filmmaker Ken Burns, discover the real Mark Twain. At 10, from the book that became the acclaimed motion picture, go behind the scenes of a new production by the San Francisco Opera, The Making of Dead Man Walking. And at 11, it's Charlie Rose. That's tonight, so think 13.
The executive director of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority has stepped down. Edward Gross will retire from the authority effective February 1st. Governor-elect McGreevy has called for Gross's resignation, saying the Easy Pass Turnpike deal was a failure. Gross had hoped to stay on in the post. New Jersey motorists may find fewer auto insurance companies who will cover them in the future. Desiree Taylor has an update on which companies have requested to leave the state and which are seeking rate increases.
A number of auto insurance companies are planning to put the brakes on their business in New Jersey. The State Department of Banking and Insurance says about 6 insurance companies have either requested to leave or asked to stop writing new business in the state.
Right now, we have 34%
fewer insurance companies doing business in New Jersey than New York, more than 30% fewer than Pennsylvania.
The biggest blow came last year when New Jersey's largest auto insurer, State Farm, announced it wanted to stop doing business in the state. State Farm insures about 800,000 Garden State motorists. In addition, AIG requested to leave and was approved, but has decided to delay their withdrawal for 2 years. Ohio Casualty sold their private insurance policies to another company, and Harleysville Insurance wants out. John Teen says the reason for the mass exodus is simply a case of economics and tight regulations.
Well, the challenge that we have right now is some of the largest auto insurance carriers in New Jersey have said that they can no longer do business in New Jersey because our regulatory system has just become so overwhelming.
Teen says financial problems have already prevented State Farm from writing new business, as well as Newark Insurance, Motor Club, and Homestead Insurance. Providence, Washington will stop renewing policies. In addition, the Department of Banking and Insurance has just approved rate increases for 4 auto insurance companies: Founders Insurance, Farm Family Casualty, New Jersey Reinsurance, and New Jersey Manufacturers. These changes do not affect all policy holders, but Teen says it is a sign of the times. Industry experts like Teen say the only way to keep auto insurers in New Jersey is to ease regulations. Teen says he hopes the new administration will be open to working with insurers to find solutions.
Within the next 120 days, we will set forth specific legislative initiatives regarding auto insurance.
The withdrawal process for an insurance company requesting to leave can take up to 5 years. But Teen says with so many insurance companies in financial distress, New Jersey motorists may be running out of time. Desiree Taylor, NJN News, Woodbridge.
Business news is coming up next. Rich, what's in your report tonight?
Okay, coming up, the state's unemployment rate is on the move, and it's not going in the right direction. And airline passengers could be facing even longer lines on Friday. I'll tell you why when we come back.
Stay on top of what's happening at home and around the world with 13. Our acclaimed news lineup now features BBC World News for a global perspective on the events of the day. You'll find the news and analysis you need to know weeknights here on 13.
Ruth, are you jealous?
Quinn has jealousy.
I can't just sit back and watch you do the dance I danced so long ago.
Secrecy.
Some things you don't touch. What do you make me out to be?
And duplicity.
You don't look anything like your story.
Been so devastatingly delectable.
It's good.
When Linda Lavin and Samantha Mathis star in Collected Stories.
Wow.
On PBS Hollywood Presents.
Wednesday night at 9 on 13.
Business news, New Jersey's unemployment rate rose again in December, though it's still below the national average. The state labor department says the unemployment rate here rose to 4.9%, up 0.2%. The national average is now 5.8%. Officials say the number of people working in New Jersey fell by 3,300 last month, most losses in the manufacturing and retail sectors. Meantime, after falling for more than 3 months, gasoline prices have taken a turn. Prices have increased over the past 3 weeks. Nationally, gasoline is up about 3 cents a gallon since the last week in December. That's according to the Lundberg survey. On average, regular unleaded is now running about $1.12 a gallon. They expect prices to climb at least moderately over the weeks to come. The good news, gasoline is down about 45 cents a gallon since the terrorist attacks. When people stopped traveling, that created a glut, which is now starting to ease. In New York, plans are underway to rebuild the 47-story World Trade Center building number 7. But the owner of the property is denying reports they wanted construction to start on the 1-year anniversary of the terrorist attacks. Even while cleanup of the 16-acre site continues, Larry Silverstein says he hopes to break ground on a new building, hopefully before this September. There was a report in Crane's New York Business, and the tentative groundbreaking date had been set for September 11th. Today, he denied that report. Building number 7 caught fire after the attacks and collapsed about 8 hours after the Twin Towers were destroyed. No one died in that building. Airline passengers are being warned to expect more delays starting this Friday. That's when the nation's airlines are under order to inspect all checked baggage for explosives. Experts are predicting even bigger backups at many airports. That deadline comes as part of the new aviation security law. This could include using bomb detection machines, bomb sniffing dogs, or cross-checking baggage with passengers. The FAA will have inspectors at airports to ensure all baggage is checked. The Transportation Department is expected to announce how airlines will meet the deadline later on this week. Lucent Technologies and the union representing many of its employees could be facing a lawsuit from some former workers. Lawyers representing about 350 former employees say the company and the union had a secret agreement that may have cost those workers up to $60,000 each. Attorneys say those employees accept an early retirement package in May and August that offered up to $40,000 in compensation. But in September, more than 1,200 workers accepted a package worth up to $100,000. The lawyers say the first group was misled. Both Lucent and the union are denying the accusations. Not a good way to start the week on Wall Street. Losses across the board. First, investors expressed more concern after Alan Greenspan said on Friday the economy's growth could be tempered this year. Then Merrill Lynch recommended that investors take some money out of stocks and put it into bonds. They're now recommending a portfolio with 50% stocks, 30% bonds, and 20% cash. They had been recommending 60% stocks and 20% bonds. So at the close, the Dow Industrials fell 96 points to 9,891. Among the broad markets, the Amex is off 4, NASDAQ lost 31, S&P 500 dropped 7. In the bond market, the 10-year note fell slightly. Its yield at 4.87%. Kent, that's business.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay.
There's more news ahead tonight on NJN News. The inaugural ceremony was child's play during a weekend inaugural and Family Day event. That story when NJN News continues.
How you see your world is about to change. Beginning now.
I'm Bill Moyers. Join me every week for a new series on PBS, exploring the issues, events, and ideas that are shaping our world and changing our lives. Along with my colleagues from NPR, we'll go behind the news to look at what's happening and why. Watch now, premiering January 18th at 9.
Although Governor-elect James McGreevy will take the oath of office at noon tomorrow, this weekend there was a practice administering of the oath along with lots of entertainment with a group of students. Billed as a children's inaugural and family day, the festivities took place at the College of New Jersey. Hundreds of youngsters from around the state were on hand Saturday at the College of New Jersey Gymnasium. There was plenty of music.
I'll be a famous singer.
There were games and even a kids' news program, complete with a camera, microphone, reporters, and interviews of McGreevy family members. The day was a lesson on government, so 120 of the students played the role of lawmakers, 40 members of the state Senate, and 80 members of the Assembly, all seated on the stage for the practice swearing in. When the governor-elect arrived, there were plenty of cheers and introductions.
What's your last name? Guzman, all right? This is my wife.
Taking the place of the Chief Justice of the New Jersey Supreme Court, a somewhat nervous 15-year-old Michael Drakeford administered the oath while Mrs. McGreevy held the Bible.
So help me God.
Then the governor-elect took time to hold a quiz on the responsibilities of the chief executive.
So now when I say that oath, what does that mean?
So what did the youngsters think about the inaugural festivities?
I think it was a really good idea because so kids could see what was happening too. Jim McGreevy will be the best governor in the whole world.
The governor-elect used the opportunity with the students to pitch hard work in school as the key to their future. He also told them to turn off their TV sets and read instead. Good advice. Not just yet, though. That's NJN News for tonight. I'm Kent Manahan. For Rich and all of us here, thank you for being with us. We hope you'll come back and join us again tomorrow, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.
I was born modest, but it didn't last.